Hi, everybody. Hope you're hanging in there as well as can be expected. An instructor told me, said, don't wear like checkered or striped shirts because it can sometimes distort, especially if you move. It'll be distracting for the viewer. It doesn't translate well to, YouTube or WebEx or these other products. Fact of the matter is, my nearby dry cleaner's been closed. Okay, for whatever reason. Hope they're not sick, but so I'm going down the pecking order. I've used up my solid colored shirts. Now I did squeeze in a polo shirt one lecture or two. So now this, maybe a few striped shirts, and I'm just hoping I'm not down to the Aerosmith concert T-shirt, by the week 5 lecture or whatever. But we have to make the best of what we have, right? These are the circumstances, and as I say, they are ugly, and I applaud all of you for being here. So we're going to wrap up chapter 1 today, and really focus on really things that are going to be on your quiz. So hopefully this first quiz goes by pretty smoothly. I want to get everybody kind of out of the starting gate well. Quick review, what we talked about last lecture. Revenue, that's money that comes in, period. It can come in either electronically through Apple Pay or things like that, or cash through the cash register. Profit is when you have your revenue, you subtract your costs from it. Okay, so if you're ahead, if you made a profit, that means your costs are less than your revenue. If your costs happen to be higher than your revenue, that unfortunately that translates to a loss. So, and that is something we can discuss. And there's many facets to running a profitable business. So, if you want to bring that up in the discussions, please do. Risk is the chance that you take that the business you start is going to be a profitable business. Some businesses, for example, Amazon, which has just been a monster of a company, had multiple unprofitable years in a row. Well, the reason for that, and it was a legitimate one, was Jeff Bezos, the CEO, said, well, we're building out our infrastructure. We need, to support the diversity of the products that we have. We need to support the geographic area that we serve. We need to put up warehouses and distribution centers, and there's one right off of I-25 if you just go north from the school. So legitimate reasons for intentionally, not worrying about losing money the first few years. Basically Bezos is saying we're in this for the long run. We're playing the long game here. We're trying to be successful, and they've really built out a huge competitive advantage. So that's a good thing. Well, in some ways it is, some ways it's not. But clearly for small business owners, it's been a horrible thing. But as far as COVID-19 and getting things that you need, probably a pretty good thing. Business stakeholders, again, it could be investors, but it's also, if you set up a business, it's the community around you. It's the fact that you're providing jobs to people in the community. It's the fact that you've got an environment around you that you need to be aware of. You've got suppliers that depend on your business to keep their employees employed, so on and so forth. So when you start up a business, it's not just you and the building. There's a ripple effect that your business does have, in fact. And then we also talked about the importance of entrepreneurs, and the 2 examples I gave, I think, to me, illustrated pretty clearly are, the iPod. That was an invention that generated billions for Apple, and then Flaming Hot Cheetos, which generated billions for PepsiCo. So, and both of those went from not even a concept to a product in a very short period of time because somebody had a creative idea and they acted on it. So that's there to be had. So Now we move into the second part of the chapter. Again, all this really do is to read chapter 1. But the next topic is the 5 factors of production. And the 5 factors of production will be tested. So it's in the book. It's clearly explained. I'm going to talk about it. We could talk about it on the WebEx. Please pay attention to it. Okay, important stuff. Those 5 factors are land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and knowledge. Okay, and there's been this talk about globalization, which clearly has been impacted, over the past 4 months with COVID-19. But one of the arguments in favor of globalization is that a lot of countries don't have all 5 factors of production, which is true. I mean, if you look at Japan, Japan's got capital, they've got entrepreneurship, they've got a lot of knowledge. They do not have land, okay? I mean, they just don't. Small islands. Same thing with Switzerland. Countries like that, you don't have the something's missing. A piece of the puzzle is missing. Russia's got tons of land, but it's a communist government system. So there's very little entrepreneurship because there's really no incentive to invent something new or develop a new product, because why? You're not going to, if you're a government worker, maybe they'll give you a nicer apartment or something. Your reward is not going to be commensurate with the effort that you put into doing something new, because the government really owns it, and whether you get rewarded or not is totally out of your control. And so that means in a country like Russia, in a communist system, entrepreneurship is lacking. Okay. Some of those 5 factors, you can have people that'll argue that, economists typically argue that knowledge is the most important, saying, okay, well, you could have all those factors. You could have the land, you could have the capital, you could have the labor, people with an entrepreneurial spirit, but if you don't really know how to do it, then it's not going to be successful. So they make the argument that knowledge is the most important of the 5 factors. I think one of the quiz questions goes to that. They said, of the 5 factors, which is argued to be the most important, and that would be knowledge. And there's something to be said for that. I mean, certainly, if I get on an airplane, I want to know that the people who built it knew what they were doing. Okay, so yeah, knowledge to me, when I'm sitting in that airplane seat, knowledge is kind of at the top of the list of things that I look at. Next section it's called the business environment. There's 5 components to it, so I'm just going to look down and read them off, and then we'll go through each one by one. The first is the economic and the legal environment. Okay. The second is the technological environment of the business environment. The section's called the business environment, and these 5 components make it up. So the first, again, economic and legal. Second is technological. Third is the competitive environment. The fourth, the social environment. And the fifth is the global business environment. And I'm going to put the wood behind the arrow on each of these, okay? The economic and legal environment, it's been quite a change to the economic environment since March, hasn't there? Boy, howdy, there sure has been. I mean, we're basically sealed off from the rest of the world, right? I mean, we can't leave to go. I mean, what country can we travel to these days? I'm not aware of any. I mean, Canada won't let us in. Mexico won't let us in. I mean, British Virgin Islands, if you were inclined to go there, wouldn't let you in. So, I mean, it's one of these things where, yeah, we're kind of, we're here. And that's, I mean, you can go to the next state, or you can go to California, although infection rates being what they've been there, I don't know why you would. So what that also means is supply chains have been disrupted, meaning that if you're building something like, I'll go back to the example we've been using, an iPod, that has a lot of components in it, right? It's got the camera, it's got the hard drive for the music, flash drive for the music, effectively, and it's got all types of circuitry, not to mention phone-related circuitry to connect to cell towers and the like. So, and many of those components are made overseas. So now companies like Apple are scrambling to get replacement suppliers. So that means still things from overseas. I mean, cargo ships are still coming in. Cargo planes are still coming in. People aren't coming in. But there is still trade between nations, but it's been crimped. So that's impacted, and all it takes is one component of your supply chain to break down, and you've got to find an alternative, right? Okay, so basically, you've had this issue with supply chains, and other countries have been used to fill the breach, but still, that's a big issue. And then the other thing is just looking just locally. Forget about global trade. I mean, I think one of the sad realities of the coronavirus, which really hasn't come home to roost yet, is commercial real estate's a great example of this, is companies are finding out what they can do without. And when they find out what they can do without, those things are going to disappear for quite a long time, if not forever. For example, commercial real estate. Companies can tell by now how effective virtual work is. And they've realized, okay, these workers can very easily work from home. I mean, they've proven that there's no drop-off in productivity for this segment or this department of work. On the flip side, others sort of the ability to interact is like a classroom. I mean, I sure hope next semester we're in a classroom because just the interactions are spontaneous and the ideas that get kicked around are spontaneous, and you really need to have that. So I don't think offices are going to go away, but certainly departments, functions, companies are saying, okay, we can do without. So do we really need a 10-story building? Can we make do with a 5-story building? And the answer in many cases is yes. So I don't think those 5 stories are ever going to come back into play. Okay, so commercial real estate, for example, right now is probably a bad path to go down because, again, once companies realize what they can do without, they will. And it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to have that come back. So something to look out for. The other thing, the topic talks about legal environment, and a large part of that is enforceable contracts. Now, the beauty here in the United States is we have very strict patent protections, and people, in other words, if you have an idea, you get if you have a song that you copyright, or if you have an invention that you patent, basically that legally protects you from anybody imposing on it. So, your labors of entrepreneurship are protected. Okay. On the flip side of that, to flip the pancake over, in countries that don't have enforceable contracts, in the Far East, a lot of stuff gets pirated. I mean, I lived in Japan for 7 months, and there was things. It's not as bad now as it was back then, but you could get, basically you could tell it was not straight from the factory if I was going to buy music or something. I'm not even going to get down the cassette path. Why confuse things? So that's been a difficulty. The next category is the technological environment, and we talked about iPhone, other things. For example, electric cars. It's certainly helped the quality of life, certainly helped the environment. So the technological environment has improved quality of life things. It's improved productivity in many ways. Of course, access to a cell phone, access to things like WebEx and YouTube. The fact is we can still hold a class, whereas 20 years ago, that it would not have been possible. You would have gotten a letter in the mail saying, please read the following chapter. And a textbook in the mail. I mean, not much to that. At least we're going to cover things, and then we're going to discuss things. So that's quite a step up, actually. E-commerce, clearly, I mentioned Amazon is the 600-pound gorilla in that space. And with Amazon and other such companies, there's two categories of it: B2C and B2B. So what's the difference, and what's the definition of it? Well, B2B is business to business. Okay, so that would be Amazon selling, protective masks to healthcare providers, which they do. So that's B2B, which is, okay, somebody like an Amazon sells to another business. And then B2C is simply Amazon selling to you and me. Okay, so quiz question, by the way. You know, the quizzes on McGraw-Hill want to know if you know the difference between B2C, business to consumer, versus business to business. So if you have any confusion about it, let's discuss in the discussion section. And then you can use technology to be responsive to customers. And I'll give you a quick example of that. A credit card company, I signed a non-disclosure, so I was involved in the project. I can't reveal which one, but there's not many, and B, it was 20 years ago, so I think it's kind of moot. But that being said, what I didn't realize was that, like, when you pull out your credit card and you swipe it, that to the company, the credit card company, that's an event, okay? And if they analyze the data of where you spent your money and who you spent your money with and how much you spent, then it draws a very good demographic picture of your spending habits. Now, the person at the credit card company working on this project said, after a few months, or especially after a few years of collecting this data, we know the customer better than their spouse does. I mean, we know exactly what hobbies they have, we know exactly what type of foods they like, which of course they do. I mean, the restaurant charges, right? We know what their spare time activities are. Are they spending money at a golf shop? Are they spending money at a pool hall, a bowling alley? We know what their hobbies are, okay? We know what foods they like. We know what sports they like to go to. We know what type of beverages they like to drink. We know how much beverages they drink. Are you spending, 5% of your income on food and 10% on alcohol? Okay, that's not good, but the credit card company knows that, and that gets factored into decisions. I mean, so it paints a very accurate demographic picture of you. Okay, so there's no escaping that. Credit card company does kind of know. Now, it helps them be more responsive. I mean, clearly, if they're promoting things, they're not going to waste their money promoting on things that you don't do or wouldn't spend money on. But yours truly loves sushi and loves hockey games. And so typically I would get things related to the Avalanche. I would get discounts to sushi bars, save 20%, that type of thing, so on and so forth. So it's tailored to what your tastes are. And likewise, concert tickets. I mean, if I get them through Ticketmaster, AXS, I guess is what it is now, they know what bands I go to. They look at, where's Bill Gallagher spend his money for concert tickets. Because, believe it or not, occasionally this old dog hops off the couch and wags his tail, at a concert once in a while. Frightening thought, I know. But anyway, so moving on. That's how the stuff gets it gets put to use. The competitive environment, and this is where technological advances and competition meet. So what I did was I brought with me to my video lecture this. See, now last semester, unfortunately, I have to figure out a way to make this up to you guys because you're not benefiting from this. We used to play The Price is Right, and I would pick groups of 4. In the first group, I'd say, okay, how much does this cost? And I bought it at Target, and this is a 64 gigabyte flash drive storage. Okay, so typically, I mean, I would pay. I think for this, I paid like $6.95 for it, which would elicit cries of "You got screwed, Instructor Gallagher." Don't ask me to, or don't. I don't want you doing any shopping for me. You got taken. So I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, anyway. This, and then the other group would be asked, how much did this cost back in 1983 when I got involved in the technology industry? Okay. And so $6.95 circa today, Target. 64 gigs. This device stores what would have cost you $64 million worth of storage back in 1983. Okay, that's how much technology has impacted both costs and productivities. And those companies that made the old school storage devices, they're gone. There's no more margin. They've been rendered obsolete, just like with the cassette players and all the other things like that. Rent, some 80s movies. You'll see all these things. You'll see the computers with the big discs on them, and you'll see people wearing those Walkmans, with the earphones, cassette players. But that's what technology does. There's a circle of life, and it just eliminates, those other things that are not keeping up with the times. The other two topics we'll get to, and then we'll break this video. One is the social environment. Clearly, demographics, big, thing that every aspect of dealing with demographics needs to be addressed. Okay, I mean, equality clearly at the top of the list. So there's the book goes into it and discusses it, not just in the U.S. but worldwide. I mean, the world needs to do a better job at managing diversity, and a big issue. And demographics are changing. Age demographics are. People like me, 20 years from now, think of it, just 20 short years when you're in the midst of the powerful work business career that you've developed due to the knowledge you've garnered from classes such as this. Yours truly will probably be pushing up daisies. Not that I'm jaded about, things like that. But the fact is, according to age demographic statistics, I will be. I'll have moved on to the next life. So the population is aging. Okay, that's a fact of life. There's also more single-parent households. So again, there's more of those things to be taken into consideration. So demographics is, the social environment. That's a critical factor to consider with business. And then the global business environment, which really, I'm not going to spend much time with that because it's really been placed into an induced coma, hasn't it? I mean, like I said, nothing, the exception of cargo ships and planes, things aren't coming in, things aren't going out. We're not spending money overseas. Nobody's coming here to spend money. So, again, the global business environment's really, as I say, it's been placed into an induced coma. So we'll leave it at that, and then this takes us through almost through page 15. So this chapter only goes to 19, which means we only have about 3.5 more pages to go. So hang in, and we'll wrap it up, and we'll go to the WebEx. Thanks.